people I don't think realized was he had cameras all over the place, unbeknownst to them. And now he has all that footage, supposedly. This is what I'm told. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens if, you're a huge iconic, TV star or movie star, and you're in some very, very...
Who's getting the money, though?
I think sometimes Meek falls victim to, I have to explain myself because they be playing with my name.
Yeah.
And the more he responds, the more they keep playing with his name.
Hidden footage, whispered names, a shadow network of power, desire, and control. Orlando Brown didn't just speak, he detonated. In a single, unhinged, unsettling series of interviews, he painted a picture of Diddy's legendary gatherings that sounded less like industry parties and more like meticulously engineered operations. According to him, these weren't chaotic nights of celebrity excess. They were productions, staged with precision, watched through discreetly placed lenses and archived somewhere out of reach. And those archives, Brown suggests, hold the kind of leverage that could bend careers and keep even the most untouchable stars in line.
Man, you doing it, man. You deserve it, Daddy. You putting in that work. Proud of you. I love you. Yeah.
The names he dropped weren't minor. Usher, Meek Mill, Will Smith. Each mention sent online speculation spiraling, each connection prompting the same whispered question. If Diddy really has this sort of material, what's it for? Brown's implications are as sordid as they are strategic. That private moments from these elite nights could become a currency, traded not in dollars but in loyalty, silence, and influence. We've heard the rumors before, but never packaged in such brazen, bizarre delivery. And yet, in the messy performative chaos of Brown's statements, there are eerie overlaps with details already floating in lawsuits and gossip circles. Usher's name has been tangled in speculation for months, long before Brown threw gasoline on the fire. The idea being passed around by certain insiders is that his sparkling Las Vegas residency and high-profile Super Bowl moment didn't just appear out of thin air. Instead, some allege they came courtesy of Diddy's quiet backing, a kind of industry favor that's anything but free. If you believe the chatter, that kind of gift comes with a string attached, sometimes an entire rope. The image is tempting to the gossip mind, Usher basking in the glitter of one of music's biggest stages, all while bound by an unspoken understanding with the man who made it happen. Those pushing this theory frame it as a pattern, evidence that what looks like luck or talent might be part of an invisible ledger, one where Diddy's influence is paid back in ways the public will never see.
One of the allegations was that Diddy had sex with a Philadelphia rapper who dated Nicki Minaj. Immediately, people identified the rapper as Meek Mill.
For Meek Mill, the storm took shape in court documents, redacted names in a 73-page lawsuit that internet sleuths tore apart in record time. The clues were there in plain language. A Philadelphia rapper who dated Nicki Minaj. You don't need a magnifying glass to connect the dots. This suit alleges this unnamed figure was seen on Diddy's yacht alongside underage company and paid companions, later woven into stories about private encounters and supposed romantic ties with Diddy himself. The timing is almost cinematic. Rather than address the whispers head-on, Meek wipes his socials clean, leaves one cryptic post dangling, and pivots to promoting new music. It's a move that raises more eyebrows than it lowers. And in the lawsuit's deeper pages, there's the suggestion of even more connections, linking Diddy, Stevie J, and an unnamed R&B star who performed at the Super Bowl and had a successful Vegas residency. You can see how quickly this loops right back to Usher's door. The backdrop to all of this isn't just tabloid fluff, it's a courtroom drama that has kept Diddy locked up in the Metropolitan Detention Center while he waits to hear whether his sentence will stretch into decades. Prosecutors and accusers have described his Freakoff events as elaborate marathons stocked with supplies that federal agents later cataloged by the thousands, baby oil bottles, lubricants, and substances whispered about in sealed testimony. Those who claim to have been there talk about a rotating cast of famous faces and rising stars, pulled into a carnival where pleasure blurred with pressure, and the host always kept the upper hand.
My social media presence is my bread and butter, okay? So you can't just use me for social media and not, don't just start I'm standing up.
That's where Will Smith's name starts to cast a long, uncomfortable shadow. For years, his public image has been polished to near perfection. A family man, blockbuster lead, philanthropic figure. But resurfaced photos and anecdotes place him at Diddy's Miami events, including the infamous night where food was served from the bare body of a reclining woman. The guest list that evening reads like a Hollywood fever dream. Deanna Ross, Bruce Willis, Owen Wilson, and there, Will Smith. Add in their decades-long acquaintanceship, the public camaraderie, Diddy's own quick defense of Smith after the Oscar stage slap in 2022, and you begin to see why some believe the two men might share more than a casual friendship. The so-called silent pact theory hinges on this: shared knowledge of what happens behind those guarded doors, sealed by mutual benefit in the fear of mutual destruction. Some say Will's repeated presence at Diddy's more private affairs wasn't just a social drop-in, but a seat at the real table, one where secrets are the main course. And when Orlando Brown drags Smith's name into his latest whirlwind of claims, the speculation only deepens. If hidden footage truly exists, the implications are staggering. We'd have to ask ourselves who else might be on those tapes, and how far each would go to ensure they never see daylight.
It was my man, this is probably irreparable.
Even as Smith has gone on record recently denying any link to Diddy's alleged freak-offs and tossing in a joke about disliking baby oil, the tension lingers. Denials in Hollywood don't erase the optics, especially not when the public has already been primed by years of gossip, paparazzi shots, and carefully timed social media storms. Smith's rebuttal came with a mix of humor and frustration, but it's worth noting he didn't try to erase the history of being in Diddy's orbit, only the suggestion that he played any part in the seedier claims. Meanwhile, Diddy's trial and its mountain of testimony have already cracked open enough of his world to make Orlando Brown's rants feel less like random chaos and more like echoes from the edges of a much bigger, messier truth. Accusations of coercion, manipulation, and a web of favors that blur the line between personal life and professional advancement. These are the threads running through both the official record and the whispered accounts from those who say they've seen too much. Every name caught in that tangle now has to navigate the same tightrope. Distance themselves without drawing more attention, deny without over-explaining, stay visible without stepping into the fire.
Cars. Yeah. Is he this gangster that behind the scenes is that him? Or is that
Shout out to Wendy Williams.
And yet, the real power in all this might not be in the parties themselves, but in the archive, the alleged footage that Brown insists exists. That idea alone changes the stakes for everyone involved. Because if the cameras were rolling, and if the tapes still sit somewhere in a vault or a hard drive, then we're not just talking about scandalous stories. We're talking about permanent leverage, the kind that can end careers, sway deals, and decide who rises or falls in a town built on image. From the outside, Diddy's private gatherings were the kind of thing the industry whispered about with a mix of envy and awe. The marble floors, the panoramic ocean views, the guest list that looked like the front row at every awards show rolled into one. But when we peel back the glamour, the picture turns far darker. Former attendees have described scenes that sound less like indulgence and more like performance art designed to strip away dignity. Rooms lit just enough for the camera to catch the sheen of baby oil on skin. Tables turned into living displays. Movements choreographed not for pleasure, but for control. And always, somewhere in the background, the quiet hum of surveillance equipment, capturing every detail.
They were referred to me as Wild King Nights. And what a Wild King Night was when him and a guest would go to a hotel room or be at his home, his bedroom, and they would have intimate gatherings. I would have to go and prep that hotel room, which consisted of baby oil Astroglide.
Those who claim to have been there speak of the freak-offs as if they were rituals rather than parties. Hours that bled into days with participants pushed to their limits while an audience, sometimes filled with other high-profile names, watched. To some, it was a consensual plunge into decadence. To others, it was a trap, a performance they didn't know they'd agreed to, filmed for reasons no one would explain. When federal agents raided Diddy's residences and found over 1,000 bottles of lubricants, it wasn't just a bizarre detail, it became a symbol. A shorthand for everything unsettling about the allegations, the baby oil chronicles that prosecutors say marked the tone of these gatherings. It's here that the human cost cuts through the salacious headlines. As more stories surface, we're hearing from those who left with more than just bruised reputations. Survivors describe psychological fallout that lingers long after the music fades. Trust shattered, careers derailed, lives quietly altered. Several have said they felt cornered, that turning down the host requests meant risking professional exile or public humiliation. One attorney put it bluntly, this isn't just about one man's behavior, it's about an entire machine that made it possible. And when that machine is the entertainment industry itself, the implications reach far beyond any single trial.
So, Terrence Howard appeared on the PBD podcast with Patrick Bet-David, and the episode, this premiered on April 4th. Definitely making the rounds because in this episode, Terrence Howard describes an interaction with Diddy where he says that he believes that Diddy was trying to have sex with him. Let's take a listen.
Experts in trauma point out that these kinds of high-pressure, high-stakes environments create a culture of compliance. When a powerful figure controls access to money, exposure, and opportunity, even the smallest request can feel impossible to refuse. And when those requests spiral into the kind of scenarios described in court filings, extended, highly staged encounters under the influence of unknown substances, the line between choice and coercion all but disappears. We've seen this pattern before in other industries with other power brokers, but the difference here is the magnitude of celebrity and the possibility of recorded evidence. Hollywood's culture of silence doesn't just protect its stars, it often swallows the truth whole. For decades, whispers about Diddy's private life stayed behind velvet ropes and NDA clauses. Photographs might leak, rumors might circulate, but nothing stuck. Those who tried to speak out often found themselves discredited or drowned in counter-narratives, and yet the current wave of allegations suggests that this may be the moment when the curtain finally shifts. Multiple lawsuits, federal charges, seized evidence, survivors willing to attach their names and faces to their accounts. It's a convergence of forces that the industry can't simply smooth over with a press release.
Don't trust nobody. In Hollywood, specifically, when you get there, a lot of people don't know how to say no. That's the difference between New York City and California.
Still, for every person willing to speak, there are others who stay quiet, sometimes out of fear, sometimes because they're entangled in their own compromises. The thought that there could be footage, intimate, compromising, and unflinching, changes the risk calculation for everyone. If such material exists, it's not just a bargaining chip. It's a shield, a weapon, and a potential bomb in the middle of Hollywood's carefully managed image. No wonder so many seem determined to keep the lid tightly closed. Behind the scenes, the machinery that kept Diddy's Freakoffs under wraps was said to be as well-oiled as the parties themselves. Accounts from former staff paint a picture of a tight inner circle, trained to anticipate problems before they started. Security teams allegedly stationed themselves at entry points, with explicit instructions to confiscate phones, cameras, and any device capable of recording. Guests were often reminded, verbally and with signed agreements, that discretion wasn't optional. This wasn't just about privacy, it was about control, making sure that whatever happened inside stayed there.
He was this clean businessman who rise to the top because he was such a powerful and smart, educated man. I had no idea that he had this other side to him. And when I started to get exposed to his lifestyle, I started to really realize, like, this guy has an addiction. It's not just, once every few weeks, it's every day, every hour.
Bodyguards weren't the only ones playing a role. Assistants reportedly acted as both facilitators and gatekeepers, controlling access to Diddy and filtering who made it past the velvet barriers into the more secluded areas of the night. They managed the so-called vibe shifts, code for when the atmosphere needed to be adjusted, whether to cool tensions, introduce new guests, or usher someone out quietly. These moments, described by those who claim to have seen them, were handled with the efficiency of stagehands changing sets during a live show, ensuring the mood never broke and the host's authority remained intact. Even among celebrity attendees, there were whispers of complicity. Some high-profile figures allegedly acted as liaisons, smoothing over tensions between guests, introducing newcomers, and subtly reinforcing the unspoken rules of the space. Their mere presence served as both reassurance and intimidation. If other stars were here and unbothered, the thinking went, then whatever was happening must be safe to participate in, or at least safe to keep quiet about. For Diddy, these alliances created a protective buffer, an unspoken pact among peers who understood the stakes of breaking the silence.
I don't know this, but it just seems very suspicious when you go through and you look at in the history of different people that can make you go away if listen, I've worried about some of the things that I talk about on my show.
Logistics, too, were a critical part of the operation. Staff would arrange transportation in ways that avoided unnecessary exposure, staggering arrivals and departures to minimize the chance of paparazzi or curious onlookers catching on. Hotel suites and private residences were prepped with meticulous attention to detail, from lighting and sound to the strategic placement of supplies. And when the night ended, the cleanup wasn't just physical, it was reputational. Staff were expected to monitor social media for leaks, ready to intervene or report anything that threatened to breach the wall. Now, with lawsuits mounting and former insiders facing subpoenas, cracks in that wall are beginning to show. A handful of one-time loyalists have already spoken to investigators under the promise of anonymity, and others are rumored to be negotiating cooperation deals. For years, the inner circle's loyalty was reinforced by access, wealth, and fear of retribution. But as the legal pressure intensifies, the question becomes whether self-preservation will outweigh loyalty, and whether the people who once guarded the door will now be the ones who open it.
I think when it came to, it's not just the more serious charges, but it's the more complex charges, where the jury, in order to, for instance, find guilt on the racketeering charge, was going to have to find not just that Sean Combs had kicked his girlfriend, had beat people up, had engaged in truly abhorrent behavior, but that he ran a criminal enterprise.
And while the criminal case has produced its verdict, 2 convictions on lesser charges, acquittals on the most explosive ones, the legal battles are far from over. Civil suits stack up by the dozens, each telling its own fragment of the larger story. Some involve women, others involve men, several involve people who were underage at the time of the alleged events. Each filing is another crack in the facade, another detail that aligns with or contradicts what we've heard before. In some ways, the courtroom drama is just the visible tip of a much deeper, more complex iceberg. The court of public opinion, meanwhile, remains divided. There are those who see Diddy as a victim of exaggeration and opportunism, a man targeted for his wealth and visibility. Others see the pattern, the corroborations, the consistent echoes across independent accounts, and they're convinced there's more truth here than fabrication. What's undeniable is the shift celebrities once happy to stand by him at red carpet events now steer clear. Business ventures have gone quiet, and those still in his orbit choose their words with surgical care, knowing a single misstep could land them in the next headline.
Very, very powerful political figures, and entertainers, business people. So, do you really believe that Jeffrey Epstein himself? And of course not. Of course not. Yeah. Okay, so there's other theories that he's in Lebanon. He never died at all. That having the weight of owning those films right now over people. So, will Donald Trump release those films?
Even the tone of the industry's private conversations has changed. It's no longer just about Diddy. It's about what this might mean for anyone who's built their empire on a blend of art, influence, and secrecy. If one vault of footage can hold 100 careers hostage, how many other vaults are out there? How many other power players have their own archive of private moments, ready to be used as leverage? And if this story pushes even one of those vaults open, the chain reaction could be unlike anything the entertainment world has seen. The allegations keep piling up and the names keep getting bigger. If even a fraction of what's been claimed is real, we're looking at a scandal with the potential to rewrite reputations overnight. Careers, fortunes, and legacies could evaporate in a single leak. And somewhere in the middle of it all, there's the question none of us can shake. If that hidden footage surfaces, who will be the first to fall? Let us know what you think, who's protecting who and why. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and keep your eyes on the shadows.